Okay, let's do a flashback. Let's specifically go back to the 90s, our elementary school years. Okay, do you remember being in elementary school and anytime you saw a police officer come onto the campus, you were just a curious George? And then you're even more excited when that police officer came into your classroom to talk to you about none other than the illegal drugs and all the harm and violence that they can bring forward. This was through the DARE program, which is Drug Abuse Resistance Education. Now, I had the black shirt. It reads DARE across it in the red letters. I wore mine all the time. By the end of my elementary school years, it was no longer a black shirt, it was a nice faded gray shirt. You don't really hear about DARE though anymore. That's because the DARE program, it doesn't really have the impact that it was projected to when it first started. The DARE program is in elementary school years. Kids are not around drugs. For it to be effective, they should have brought it around during their high school years. That is just one of the programs developed for the war on drugs to kind of stop illegal drug trade here in the United States, but it's one that didn't work. Research has actually shown the war on drugs as a whole has not made any impact on stopping the illegal drug trade here in the United States. What they really use is incarceration. Now, we need a change. Maybe we should look at treating the drug abusers instead of actually imprisoning them. PBS had a short mini-series on the timeline of the war on drugs, and in July of 1969, President Richard Nixon declared public #1 enemy to be drug abuse. Shortly after that, the war on drugs was created. The war on drugs consists of the prohibition of military aid marked by the United States' intent to reduce the illegal drug trade here within our country and then eventually within our foreign neighbors. And they basically focus on imprisonment. Prison should be a deterrent, right? I mean, what could possibly be more frightening than being inside of quarters with violent animals? You're talking about murderers, rapists. It's really unreasonable for one to go to jail when they haven't committed a violent crime. They'll stand no chance. They'll get harassed, abused. I mean, they could even get murdered. Drug offenses account for half of the 200,000 federal prison inmates behind bars, while prisoners who have actually been convicted of a violent crime that include arson, explosive weapons, they only account for 15%. This was in an article in 2009 for Partisan News. So 15% compared to 50%. War on drugs is merely criminalizing drug addiction when they're locking up first-time nonviolent drug offenders. I really don't blame those people being incarcerated for being scared of getting in trouble for being caught doing drugs. The system isn't taking into account that this fear is no longer for adults because there are young adult users and teenage users. I mean, this could be your son or daughter, your friends, your brothers and sisters. Teenagers don't know how their actions affect themselves, let alone affect the people around them. Their brain isn't developed enough to take on that kind of responsibility or complex thinking. I mean, it really sounds unimaginable, standing by and watching a friend suffer while not calling for help. However, young adults and teens die every day from drug overdoses, while their friends are too scared to call for help because they don't want to get in trouble. My cousin in Florida, more like my brother, he died of a drug overdose on Oxycontin. He went to a party, hung out with some wrong kids, took Oxycontin and never woke up. When he stopped breathing, nobody did anything. And until an adult came home the next day and found his lifeless body there. He had no chance. Didn't even get to say goodbye. I mean, just a couple of states away in South Dakota, this was a really big issue. On a news segment in Sioux Falls, they talked about a movement called Friends Don't Let Friends Die. It's aimed about the awareness of drug overdoses, and it stresses how important it is to get help before it's too late. Treatment and awareness has got to do a lot more good than instilling fear through imprisonment. And who benefits from this fear? The law enforcement agencies? The law enforcement agencies, did you know that they're actually allowed to keep items seized from drug arrests? Federal drug forfeiture allows state and local law governments to keep up to 80% of items seized, including cash, cars, and homes. They get to use that 80% at their own disposal. That was in an article on Truth Out. There's a lot of corruption out there, and no program in which its users are continuously harmed can there ever be a solution. Users of illegal drugs, they have to associate with criminals. And then eventually, to support their habit, they're going to turn into criminals themselves. In 2008, just under 84% of 12th graders said that marijuana was easy to obtain. And even furthermore, a study by the researchers of substance abuse mental health services, it shows that 48% of people out there are in need of treatment. And this does not include alcohol abuse. This is strictly drug abuse. 48% of that need is left unmet in the United States. We really need to stop black labeling addiction and help them. We need to educate our youth and hope that they make decisions that don't involve illegal drugs. There are alternatives out there. The war on drugs has tried imprisonment and fearful tactics for 30 years. I think that we're a couple of years overdue for trying a different scenario where we can actually help the people, or at least have a chance to help the people.